This video contains heavy spoilers for Persona 3 and Persona 3 Reload. If you don't want to be spoiled, I suggest you click off now. If you don't care, you're a rebel without a cause, and I respect the hell out of that. Enjoy!
I don't think I've ever looked in this drawer. Wow, a gun! I wonder if it's loaded. No.
Contrary to the clickbait title, I'm no stranger to the pre-Persona 5 days of Persona. I was there, man. My first Persona game was Persona 4 after watching a buddy of mine stream it back in the scary era of 2012. I'm usually not very into typical turn-based RPGs. My Sumer ass finds them too slow, what with the constant walking around for 5 seconds. You know, you're trying to get somewhere and then all of a sudden you just go and before, you know, I have to spam the same move over and over and over because it does the most damage. But something about Persona 4 really struck a chord with me. I could finally live out my greatest high school fantasies, like waking up early, getting decent grades, jumping into TVs, but the story, characters, and general world of Persona has always been something that I enjoyed immensely. It's why I also don't mind shilling for whatever spin-off they drop. I love these characters, and want to see them more. I love seeing them in a sequel because I want to know what happens to them afterwards. I want to see them deal with a new problem in a game where they've gone through their character development. So stuff like Persona 4 Arena, 4 Dancing, 5 Scramble, it's something that I always really like. And speaking of dancing, I still remember when Persona 3 Dancing released. And while it was disappointing that unlike 4 Dancing, it wasn't a sequel where Makoto came back for a single night to deal with some shadows that needed to boogie down, it did really cement the idea that a Persona 3 remake should be a thing. I mean, the memento systems from 5 was almost exactly like Tartarus. Thanks to 3 Dancing, they now had HD models of the sea screw and the areas. Really, the most expensive thing to make would have just been the new cutscenes, right? Skip forward to 2023 and Persona 3 HD, after being rumored for, well, years, is finally announced after an internal Sega leak. And well, it was pretty much exactly what I expected and wanted from the first glance. Persona 3, but with Persona 5 systems and style. And as the months went by, I didn't really pay attention to any trailers. I was already convinced of buying it, and I know what Persona 3 is about. I've played FES and Portable. The new 3GS system seemed interesting, but other than that, I was just waiting for it to be released. And well, here we are. After no-living it for the past 2 weeks, I've finally played through the story again, and New Game Plus'd it, and of course, I cried when the Memories of You hit. And it wasn't what I expected in the slightest, but in a good way. I think you can ask any diehard Persona 3 fan that when Persona 3 Reload was first revealed, or even, like, you know, rumored, an alarm went off in their heads that screamed, oh god, they're just making Persona 3 into 5. And while I personally would have not minded that, because I think Persona 5 is a better game than Persona 3 in the technical and gameplay department, I can completely understand the fear. Listen, man, I'm a Sonic fan. Anytime they announce a remaster or a port, I have to pray to any deity willing to listen. The changes are only minor and they don't fuck up what made the game good. And usually that doesn't work out so well. In fact, I still don't trust Sega to make Sonic Adventure remakes, so take that as you will. Wait, fuck, this isn't a Sonic video. God, every time! Going back to what I was saying, I know the fear. And because Persona 5 was so insanely popular, I wouldn't have even blamed Atlus for just reskinning Persona 5 Royal with a depressing Blue Moon skin and calling it a day. But honestly, like, outside of quality of life changes from Persona 5 Royal and the general systems and how you interact with the game is still Persona 3. Like, I'll be completely honest with you, I might not be the best person to talk about the intricacies of what sets Persona 3 apart from 4 and 5, or even having played a real Shin Megami Tensei game, but going into the game, there was a bunch of stuff still there from the original Persona 3 I wasn't expecting. A lack of real social links for male party members, a much more classic dungeon crawl system in Tartarus, social links with requirements outside of story progression, a return to the 3 social stat system from the original. Like, I've been desperately trying to figure out a way to describe Persona 3 Reload's style of remake, and I keep arriving at the word jank, but not in a bad way. Like, when I say it still has the Persona 3 jank, I mean it in a loving way, but it's with today's Atlas standards. It really hit me when I noticed the lack of revamped social links. I was fully expecting all of the party members to get proper social links, with their ultimate persona evolution being moved to the final rank of their social link, or even adding a third upgrade like Royal did so that our initial evolution is still story-based. Hell, I was kind of expecting Tartarus to get the palace treatment and be changed into actual dungeons, or adding actual dungeons to the Midnight Shadows instead of just bosses. Really, it's both an HD Persona 3 and a remake, and it's so weird to try to put it into words for me. Persona 5 Royal's quality of life changes were great compared to 3 and 4, and I'm happy that those were translated over. The ability to immediately switch to a persona with a Shadow's weakness after discovering it, the quick travel map also showing you what you can do, whose social link you can choose that day, and whether it ranks up or not. The game also looks phenomenal. Its effects are different from Persona 5 Royal, which again, I wasn't expecting. I would have been fine with just the same effects from P5R, but they went out of their way to make new effects for the various attacks, and they all look wonderful. The stylistic choices like the cut-ins for weakness attacks are also absolutely amazing, and between you and me, I much prefer these cut-in glass breaks to Persona 5's more ripped paper aesthetic. Like, this is the kind of stuff where I can see the influence of Persona 5 Royal, and it's translated to Persona 3 really well. Like, huge, insane shout out to the UI designers and everybody who worked on translating what worked for P5 to P3. I wasn't sure how you could give something like Persona 3 an identity like they did with Persona 5's more out there Trickster Rebellion thing going on. Then again, I'm not a UI designer or even really an artist, so maybe I just lack the imagination for that stuff. But even then, it didn't feel like it was just one-to-one Persona 5 inspired. For instance, this is very minor, but whenever I opened up the save menu, there was a part of my brain that got confused when I didn't hear Makoto go, I should write something. And on that note, Makoto is still very much a silent protag, comparatively towards Red in Persona 5. He does still say the typical battle lines and grunts and all that, but outside of that, there isn't so much as a single line or even like a checkmate or pillage him. Satanayo! And that's part of the stuff that makes me think they put a lot of effort into faithfully recreating Persona 3. Like I mentioned earlier, the summoning of the Great Seal versus Nyx could have easily been changed into this big, grandiose moment where Messiah shows up like Satanael, but really, it's still the same. And that's good! That's good! Usually when people get a chance to remake an old story, I usually hope for a new ending. I'm a sucker for a happy ending, but here I was kinda hoping they wouldn't. Like, Persona 3's ending is so good, just because it goes hand in hand with the theming of the game. I would have been pretty upset or even disappointed if Persona 3 Reload suddenly had a true ending where Makoto survives. His death, while bittersweet, is a good ending to Persona 3. His self-sacrifice for not only his friends, but the entire world is a great capstone to the social links and the progression of Makoto as a protagonist. Plus, I'm also a fan of the movie's take on Makoto being more depressed and learning to open himself up due to the social links and bonds he created. His death also sets up the story of Elizabeth being on her own journey to figure out a way to save him from his fate as being the Great Seal, which I'm still desperately hoping gets picked up again soon because the wait since Persona 4 Arena is driving me insane. I'm begging you, Atlas, please, get him off the moon already. It's been 20 years. Fuck, if I had a penny for every protag that's stuck on the moon, I'd have 2 pennies. And the fuckers are both blue. Tangent aside, Persona 3 Reload is really good. The Thurgia system is really fucking fun. A mixture of the original game's fusion spells and Persona 5's showtime attacks, giving each of the party members up to 2 special attacks, depending on where you are in the story, that ignore resistances, buffs, and do some crazy damage. The protag, of course, gets 7 of the bastards, all based on previous fusion spells. To be honest though, outside of Cadenza using Orpheus, I'm surprised they didn't add some specific Thurgias for Makoto based on Orpheus and Thanatos, or even just one for unlocking Messiah, but I guess it is what it is. The ability for an extra chunky heal or damage after a bar fills up is really nice. Although I will say, giving me Jack Brothers early on in the game and giving it a high chance at downing every enemy alongside almighty damage is stupidly OP, even for me. If this mechanic returns to Persona 6 or even a Persona 4 reshuffle, then I'd love to see it expanded and more like Showtime, giving the party members special attacks based on story progression, if they have their ultimate personas, and which party member you have in your party currently. I also do think giving the protag a specific one for fusing their ultimate persona, even if it's a New Game Plus thing, would have been pretty fucking cool. Tartarus has probably never looked better, which isn't very hard because the last time we probably got to run around in it was 2006, or 2007, or 2008 if you were Europort like us. Man, I do not miss the wait times between regions. Remember Persona 4 Arena? Holy shit! Anyway, Tartarus looks great in HD. I will say I did miss some of the gimmicks from Persona 5 while dungeon crawling, and I'll admit that this is probably just a me issue, but I really missed being able to dash through enemies and skip battles. This made level grinding a lot faster in Persona 5 Royal. I was also over-leveled to fuck for most of the endgame, and every non-powerful shadow kept running away from me, so I was really missing the option of continuing to grind EXP at the end while not having to keep chasing after shadows just to beat up some weaklings. And that doesn't even begin to mention New Game Plus, where your levels carry over. I was level 99 at floor 1 of Tartarus, which is great, but for the entire game, and for some of Elizabeth's requests, I was chasing after shadows instead of them chasing after me. So the ability to just dash through them would have been very much appreciated. But, like I said, that might just be a me issue, and it would make the game more like Persona 5, and I'm sure that's not what they wanted to do in the first place. Lotus Juice the GOAT is back on the tracks again, and the new tracks all slap. While stuff like the new Master Structure took a bit for me to grow on, it still doesn't have the same oomph as the original versions, but for what they are, they're very good. The new Burn My Dread last battle goes really fucking hard. Like, Lotus Juice never fucking misses. Asumi Takahashi also absolutely shines on songs like Full Moon, Full Life, and It's Going Down Now. And while I'm not sure why Yumi Kawamura didn't come back to Reload, I'm sure there's a reason. But if Asumi is taking up the role as the de facto Persona 3 vocalist from here on out for stuff like the live concerts and crossovers like Persona Q, I'm down. She's very talented, and I'd love to hear more of her. And on that same note, the new English voice cast is pretty good. Obviously, I am aware of why specific original voice actors couldn't come back. I was still pretty surprised to hear that they just replaced the entire cast, and they all do very well, although, like mentioned above, the lack of one-liners or really any dialogue from Makoto doesn't let Alex Lee really shine as much as Xander Mobius. But hey, that's what Persona Q3 and other crossovers are for, right? Who knows, maybe they'll actually dub the Persona 3 movies or something. Alex does absolutely slap as a Ryoji and Pharaohs, so at least he got something there. Persona 3 Reload is pretty much everything I wanted, and now honestly I'm hoping they remake Persona 4. I'm with the majority when I say that I would much rather want Persona 1 and 2 remakes, but I also get that Atlus clearly wants the jumping on point to be Persona 3, so I'd also appreciate a Persona 4 reshuffle just to have all 3 games on the same baseline. I don't expect a Persona 4 remake to happen at any point soon. Rumors by my favorite Atlus insider Midori on Twitter do state that 4, 2, and 1 are all getting some form of treatment, with another leaker stating that while 4 is getting a remake, 2 is getting a remaster, which, depending on what you want, is probably the better option for Persona 1 and 2, considering how vastly different they are from modern Persona games. That's the far-off future, though. First, we have Persona 6 to look forward to, and I, for one, can't wait for what they've been cooking up. And if any more remakes or remasters happen, you can bet your ass I'll buy them. Hell, if they announce another new spin-off, I'm down for that too. Really, they can throw whatever they want at me as long as it's fun and I can spend more time with the cast members of each game. Anyway, Persona 3 Reload was really the Persona 5 of the Persona 3 games. Did you guys know they turned Persona 5 City into a real city in Japan? Isn't that crazy? I'm gonna go there right now! Hey guys, I made it to Shibuya. I can't believe they made a real city out of a video game, isn't it? Oh, look, it's the building! And that's where we hung out! Oh, dude, I hope I don't get stuck in Mementos!
Operations, who could? Well, we had such a deep relationship, but I chose the path, the right path to sure, giving my all for cure. Oh boy, probably the toughest decision I made, and ready for whatever outcome which I'm gonna pay. I shall touch the moon one day, and today's that day. I'll be in despair, however it's played out. Lose, win, how it's laid out.